Hi BookTube, what's up? My name is Juan. I am just one reader. I hope you're doing well. I am doing wonderfully well myself. Thank you very much for asking indeed. I just came back from New York yesterday and I could not wait to make this video because I had to share with you guys the amazing bookstores that I visited in New York, and also I had to do a book haul. I bought over 30 books in New York. And you know what? I went to New York this time with a very specific mindset of just buying books that I could get, that I could not get elsewhere. Sometimes when I travel, I go crazy and I end up buying a lot of books that I could get here in Mexico, or that I could just order online. So this time I went to New York with a frame of mind, a mindset of only buying books that I could only get in New York, whether it be very cheap books or very special editions or very unique books or hidden gems. So that's what I did. And I still ended up buying over 30 books. So this is going to be a big book haul. I also wanted to share some of the bookish things that I bought at some bookstores. But mostly I want to talk about the bookstores and the books that I bought in those bookstores. I do have a lot of psychoanalytical academic books in here. I will just mention them briefly, just mention them in passing, because I know that most of you, the big majority of you are mostly interested in fiction. So that's what I will focus on the most. Okay, so without any further ado, this is my New York City book haul and tour of wonderful independent and not only independent bookstores. So the first bookstore that I have to mention is, of course, the Strand Bookstore. The Strand Bookstore, which is located on Broadway and I think 12th Street or something, is my favorite place in the world. It's always been my favorite place in New York, my favorite place in the world, my favorite bookstore. It is a huge bookstore. It is like 3 or 4 floors, and it's independent. It's New York City's biggest and most popular independent bookstore, and for good reason. It is a shrine of bookishness, and it is crowded with book lovers. This time, I actually went. I think I went 4 times while I was in New York. I just had to go again and again and again because I just love it. So I ended up buying a lot of books there, but I'm pretty happy with what I bought there. So first, I bought this mug, a coffee mug. I'm always drinking coffee, so I'm taking this. This is kind of has a cool quality. Then I bought a lot of tote bags because I use tote bags all the time. I'm always carrying books and notebooks and a lot of things. So I always am in the need for some cool tote bags, and I could not resist. So I got this big Strand tote bag, which is just like wonderful. I also got this, which is really cool, I think. I got this, which is a kind of picture or illustration, like a vintage illustration of the Strand. I love it. And the last tote bag that I bought, there were so many, they had so many tote bags with very cool designs. I wanted to buy every single one of them, so I just had to really select wisely. And of course I had to buy something that reminded me of New York, my favorite city. So what better than the subway, right? And then also at the Strand, I bought this t-shirt of The Phantom Tollbooth, which is my favorite book of 2018 so far, and just one of my favorite books that I have ever read, period. So yeah, that was really cool to find that. Now, these are the books that I bought at the Strand. So I bought this beautiful hardback of The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, which is a book that I already own in Spanish, and it's a book that I already read. It's one of my favorite books, and I just had to get this copy. It was very, 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 very cheap. And you know, The Goldfinch is a very special book for me. It's a book that always reminds me of New York. It's a book that I associate with New York because, well, it takes place in New York, some of it. But also, this book was released when I lived in New York 5 years ago and when it won the Pulitzer. So it's just a book that was very big when I was in New York. So I just had to get an actual New York copy of this book. And so now I will probably read it in English soon. Now, I bought this beautiful, beautiful collection or anthology or whatever it is of things by P.G. Wodehouse. This is Utterly Uncle Fred. I had never heard about this particular character by P.G. Wodehouse, but I recently read P.G. Wodehouse's Blanding's Castle, which is like another like one of his storylines, I guess, or another set of characters that he does. And I absolutely fell in love with his writing style, so I cannot wait to start dabbling in to another one of his collections. At the Strand, I also bought this wonderful, really battered and old edition of Beck, a Book by John Updike. I bought this upon the recommendation of Andrew Sean Greer, who is the author of Less, which is the novel that won the Pulitzer in 2018. And in an interview, he, the author, Andrew Sean Greer, said that he kind of based or was inspired by John Updike's Beck, a Book, to write Less. So I needed to get this. And also, this copy is just wonderful. It's so old. I love old books, and the Strand is the best place for them. I also got Pnin by Vladimir Nabokov, which is another book that Andrew Sean Greer mentioned in that interview. And yeah, it's a beautiful and very old edition. Now, the rest of the books that I bought at the Strand... Oh, wait. The Heart of a Dog by Mikhail Bulgakov. This, I just bought it because it was recommended. It was like a staff pick. The rest of the books that I bought at the Strand are psychoanalytical, so I'm just going to mention them quickly. This is Psychoanalysis and Literature, an examination of the relationship between psychoanalysis and literary criticism by Robert Mullinger. So I love literature and I love psychoanalysis, and what better than to combine both worlds, the best of both worlds. Then I have a book that I actually already read most of it, but it's a very, very, very rare book. It's very difficult to find an existing copy. It's out of print. This is Problems of Psychoanalytical Technique by Otto Fenichel. Then I have this wonderful, wonderful book, In Session, by Deborah Lott. This is the bond between women and their therapists. And it's basically a bunch of women who talk about their own treatments, their own psychoanalytical treatments, and how they related to their therapists. And they say that this is just an amazing, amazing book and very entertaining as well. Then I got this wonderful book that I can barely touch because I feel like it's gonna break. It's gonna fall to pieces any second. Just looking at it makes me anxious. This is in very, very poor condition, but it just looks cooler. It is as old as time. Oh, this happened. I told you this was gonna happen. So this is New Directions in Psychoanalysis. This is edited by Melanie Klein and Paula Hyman. And if you know anything about psychoanalysis, you will probably have heard of them. They are two of the authors that I follow the most. So this is a hidden gem, an absolute treasure that is going into my collection. And the last book that I bought at the Strand Bookstore was Psychoanalytical Therapy and the Gay Man, which is a book that I had never heard of, and I don't understand why I had never heard of it. But yeah, now I have this baby. All right, the second bookstore that I want to mention is Rizzoli Books. This is probably the most luxurious, most beautiful bookstore that I have ever visited in New York. It is like a big... I'm going to show you some pictures because I took some beautiful pictures of it. it's a wonderful place. I just walked in and immediately fell in love. They have beautiful editions, and the atmosphere is just grandiose and opulent and really, really beautiful. And while I was there, I bought two books. First, The Changeling by Joy Williams, which she's an author that I've been recommended many, many times because she's one of the big exponents of magical realism in America. And this edition of The Changeling is gorgeous. It is like cloth bound, and it's just very, very tiny, very compact, and it's just luxurious. It is beautiful. And the other one was another staff pick. This is a book that I had never heard of by an author that I had never heard of. The Book of Disquiet. It's a beautiful, beautiful copy. It has this kind of, how do you call this? Well, this kind of shiny thing here, this finish. It's by Fernando Pessoa, which I think he's an Italian writer. And I don't really know what this book is about, but it is blurbed or praised by Philip Pullman. Philip Pullman says, mysteries, misgivings, tears and dreams and wonderment like nothing else. The next bookstore that I want to mention is Alabaster Books. This is one of my favorite places that I discovered in New York this time. I had never been, and it's actually right around the corner from the Strand. Like, it's literally, like, it's right there, but most people don't even see it. It's a very tiny place. It's like a perfect used bookstore. It's really quiet. The staff is really good, and oh my god, I found some incredible gems in there that I cannot believe I found. So these are all psychoanalytical, but they are books that they're out of print. They have been out of print forever. So the fact that I was able to find a copy of these books you have no idea what it means to me. So this is Confrontations with Myself by Helen Deutsch. Helen Deutsch was a very, very important psychoanalyst, and she wrote this book when she was getting close to death. She was close to dying, and so she wrote a book about her life and about reflecting back on her life, but also processing her own death, her upcoming death. So this is like very interesting, and it is very, very used. And yeah, it's old, and again, as old as time. Then I got Essential Papers on Object Relations, which is just like a bunch of different articles on object relations and psychoanalysis. Then I got this really cool copy of Freud, The History of the Psychoanalytical Movement. And then probably my most important find of my entire trip was this unique and wonderfully illustrated special edition of Freud's The Interpretation of Dreams, which is one of Freud's most groundbreaking texts ever. It actually shifted the way that we think about ourselves and our unconscious. So this is a beautiful edition. I looked it up online, and you can get this on Amazon for like $700. I bought this for $30. It is in perfect condition. You could never even tell that it's used. So this actually contains illustrations to pretty much every single dream that Freud talks about and analyzes in his book. It features beautiful illustrations and different art pieces by Dali, Magritte. It just has it all. It really is one of the most beautiful books. It's big. It's like a coffee table book, and it's just a book that I want to treasure and put in my office, like on a shrine, and put it on display. It is beautiful. Okay, moving on to the next bookstore. This bookstore is a tiny place on 45th Street, between, 5th and 6th Avenues, and it is called Book Off, and it sells a lot of manga, it sells a lot of DVDs and different things, but it does have an upstairs section of fiction that actually surprised me, and their books are so cheap. They're like $4, $5, and I bought some really cool stuff. This won the Pulitzer, I don't know when, but it won the Pulitzer. It is Salt, Sugar, and Fat by Michael Moss. I lost a lot of weight. I love reading about nutrition and stuff like that. So yeah, this is How the Food Giants Hooked Us. So yeah, sounds like a book that I will enjoy very much. Then I bought Justin Garber's Sophie's World, which is a novel about the history of philosophy. I've actually heard a lot about this book. I think I was supposed to read it in high school, but I never did. And this is a beautiful hardback of Sophie's World. I almost say Sophie's Choice, but no, that's another thing. Okay, I bought The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. This another Pulitzer Prize winner is a book that I started reading. I tried reading it like 6 or 7 years ago, and I remembered that it was very dense for me. But I've heard so many great things about it that I am willing to give it another try, and so I had to get another copy, and it's actually a pretty cool hardback. Then I got this Scribner anthology of contemporary short fiction, which is a bunch of short stories by Amy Bloom, Junot Diaz, Richard Ford, Mary Gateskill, Jhumpa Lahiri, Tim O'Brien, Joyce Carol Oates, Kelly Link, George Saunders, Amy Tan, Alice Walker, etc. I think that Stripped Cover Lid, they have mentioned this book before. I think Adrian has mentioned it previously, so I saw it on the shelf and it just rang a bell and I had to pick it up. It was like $5. Then I got more P.G. Wodehouse. This is The Inimitable Jeeves. I've never read the Jeeves stories, so I got this beautiful copy. And finally, I got Broadway Nights by Seth Rudetsky. Seth Rudetsky is a Broadway spokesperson, I feel. You can go and look him up on YouTube. He has a channel. He has a series of videos that are wonderful on Broadway.com that are called Obsessed, and he interviews and chats with some really important Broadway stars. He is hilarious and so sassy, and he's so passionate about Broadway. So I saw his name in a book, and of course I bought it in a second. The next bookstore that I want to mention is a wonderful gem. It is located in the Upper West Side. I think it is called Mercer Books, Mercer Bookstore, something like that. It is a very tiny place, very narrow, very compact and packed, but it has a lot of books that are really difficult to find and some rare editions. So the one that I bought there was Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard, and I bought this because another Pulitzer Prize winner. There you go. And I bought this because if I remember correctly, I think Adam from Memento Mori has talked very, very highly about this book, and so I will listen to him, of course. So yeah, I actually took some pictures of this bookstore, so I will leave them here. One of my favorite things to do in New York City, and I do it every single time that I go there, is go to Chelsea Market and eat some tacos. They have this tacos place, this taqueria, which is run by actual Mexican people from Guerrero, and it's called Los Numero Uno, and they are some of the best tacos that I've ever tasted in my life. I love them, and I go every single time that I go to New York. So I went to get some tacos, and afterwards I was walking in Chelsea Market, and they have a bookstore there. It's a really cool independent bookstore. It's called Postman Books, and I didn't take any pictures because it like visually it's not a really pretty looking bookstore. It's just like a regular bookstore. It's nice, but it's not like anything shocking, but they had some shocking and very beautiful editions. These are the Penguin Classics Deluxe editions of Wuthering Heights, which I have not read, The Master and Margarita, which I have not read, but how beautiful are these? James and the Giant Peach, which I have read, and it's my favorite Roald Dahl book that I've ever read. And this one has an introduction by Amy Bender, and I actually bought it more for the introduction than the cover. The cover is just, it's okay. And I also got this wonderful anthology of short stories by several people who have written in the New Yorker. So this is Wonderful Town, New York Stories from the New Yorker. This was edited by David Remnick, and these are all stories about New York by people from New York in the New Yorker. So what else could I possibly wish for? New York, New York, New York, New York. The last independent used bookstore that I want to mention is actually a place that I don't even know what the name is. It's a place in Soho, and I was just walking in Soho and I stumbled upon it, and it's actually a very big. Well, it's big considering it's a used bookstore. It has a lot of books. It's really empty, but it has some really great books. And I got Object Relations Theory and Clinical Psychoanalysis by Otto Kemberg. Otto Kemberg is a very, very big name in psychoanalysis, in modern psychoanalysis, and this is one of his most important works. So yeah, this was a really cool find. I could not get this book in Mexico at all. I also got a short story collection. I think it's the only short story collection that I bought in New York, which is by John Updike. This is Problems and Other Stories, and it's a tiny little beautiful thing. And then I got another Penguin Classics Deluxe edition of The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, which I haven't read, but I've always wanted to, and this is just a beautiful, beautiful edition. Finally, I do have to mention Barnes & Noble. Going to Barnes & Noble when I'm in New York because New York has so many independent and used bookstores that it's not really worth going to a big branch like Barnes & Noble, right? But I did go because I always go. And I go to every single bookstore that gets in my way, basically. So I got a book that was recommended to me by one of the staff members there, and it's by James Patterson, which, you know, I know he's a big name in mystery fiction, but I've never read him. I do enjoy mystery and thrillers very much, and so I was pleased to receive a recommendation of a very big author that I've never read, and this was this was recommended to me. It's Invisible by James Patterson and David Ellis. Basically, I think James Patterson doesn't even write his books anymore. He just gives his ideas to a writer, in this case David Ellis, and he's the one who writes them. So I don't know. I actually started reading this, and it's pretty fun. And the other book that I got at Barnes & Noble is The Culture of Narcissism, American Life in an Age of Diminishing Expectations by Christopher Lasch, which sounds wonderful. I know this is probably a very, very long video already, but I don't want to go without mentioning this book. I actually did not buy this in New York. I ordered it from Amazon and it just arrived, and so I wanted to include it in this book haul, if you will indulge me. This is Pasi Ilmari Jaskalainen's newest novel. It's called Secret Passages in a Hillside Town. Now, this author, who is, I think, Norwegian, or he was born, oh, I don't know. Well, he's kind of a Scandinavian author. I don't know. And yeah, just look at his name, right? Has to be Scandinavian, Norwegian, or something. And so he wrote a book that I read a couple of years ago, and I absolutely loved it. It was The Rabbitback Literature Society. It's a wonderful book. It's dark and whimsical and bookish and just weird and very, very fun and lovely. And he has this new book. It's a wonderful, beautiful edition, and so I had to share it with you guys. So there you go, guys. That was my big New York bookstore tour and book haul. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you wrote some of these titles down to get them yourselves or look more into them. And yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.